Half an inch of ice is headed for 40 million Americans this week, and most of them have absolutely no idea it's coming. And here's the part that keeps me up at night. It's not the snow. It's not the cold. It's what happens to your power lines at 3 in the morning when nobody's watching. We've got a storm system right now that meteorologists are calling one of the most deceptive setups of the season. Deceptive because it looks manageable on the surface. And it is anything but. So, before you go to bed tonight, you need to hear what I'm about to tell you because the window to get ready is closing fast. And I mean tonight, not tomorrow morning. Here's what nobody's talking about yet, while the Midwest is getting slammed with 4 to 8 inches of snow right now. The real danger is quietly setting up 1,000 miles to the southeast. Places like Charlotte, Raleigh, Richmond, and Lexington are sitting in the crosshairs of something that doesn't show up on a regular weather app, and that's a major ice storm in the making. Now, before I break this all down for you, drop your city in the comments right now, because I'm going through every single one tonight and I will come back with your specific forecast. And I'm not just saying that the city with the most comments tonight gets its own detailed 5-minute breakdown in tomorrow's update. So get your city in there right now. All right, let's start with what's happening on the ground right now across the Midwest, because this is the part of the storm that's already in motion and already causing problems. An Alberta clipper, think of it like a freight train that forms up in Canada and screams across the northern U.S. at frightening speed, is tearing through the heartland as we speak. Iowa is getting hit hardest right now, and folks in Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, and Dubuque are looking at 4 to 8 inches of dry, wind-driven snow before this thing moves on. And listen, dry snow sounds less scary than wet snow. But dry snow blows across roads and creates whiteout conditions in seconds, even when the snow has technically stopped falling. Chicago, I know you're worn out from this season and I get it, but this clipper is dropping another 2 to 4 inches on the city Sunday night into Monday, and it's bringing the kind of cold that bites. Milwaukee and Madison, you're right smack in the thick of it. Snow comes in fast, piles up, and then the temperature craters overnight, turning every road into a skating rink by Monday morning. Detroit and Grand Rapids, your window of impact is Sunday evening through Monday morning. Snowfall rates can hit 1 to 2 inches per hour, so visibility goes to near zero almost instantly. If you've got plans Monday morning anywhere around the Great Lakes, cancel them right now. Charge all your devices tonight and have a backup plan ready, because this is not a drill. Now here's where the story gets a whole lot more interesting and honestly, a lot more alarming, because what's following this clipper is where the real danger lives. Behind this storm. The coldest air of the entire season is barreling south out of Canada, and I mean bone-chilling. Old-fashioned Arctic cold that your joints are going to feel before you even step outside. Minneapolis. You're looking at wind chills that could bottom out around 30 to 40 below zero on Monday, and that is the kind of cold where exposed skin gets frostbite in under 10 minutes. No exaggeration. Areas north of the Twin Cities could drop even further. We're talking about the same range of dangerous wind chills we saw earlier this season when some spots in the northern plains hit negative 65. Now, for those of you who remember that January deep freeze this week is not quite that extreme, but it's in the same ballpark, and the combination with fresh snow makes it especially nasty. The Great Lakes corridor from Chicago through Cleveland and Pittsburgh is looking at overnight lows in the teens and 20s Monday night and on top of snow-covered roads. That turns everything to solid ice. So, here's the thing that surprises people every single time. It's not the storm itself that hurts you the most. It's the 48 hours after the storm when the temperature craters and everything freezes solid. All right, now let's talk about what I mentioned at the top, the part of this forecast that has me genuinely concerned. And that's the ice threat setting up across the Mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas. Here's the setup in plain English warm. Moist air is trying to push north at high levels of the atmosphere, while brutally cold Arctic air sits locked in place near the surface below it. Snow forms up high, falls through that warm layer, melts into rain, and then the instant it touches the frozen ground, it refreezes into a sheet of ice, and that right there is what meteorologists call freezing rain. And let me tell you something about freezing rain that your regular weather app will never show you. The roads look completely wet and totally normal, right up until the moment you step on them. The National Weather Service is flagging a corridor from Lexington, Kentucky, all the way through Richmond, Virginia, and into the Carolinas, where up to half an inch of ice is possible with this system. Now let me put that half-inch number in perspective for you. A quarter inch of ice on a power line is enough to snap it clean. And we're talking about potentially double that in the worst spots. That means widespread outages, trees coming down on roads and rooftops, and the kind of morning where you wake up at 3 a.m. to silence no furnace running, no refrigerator humming, nothing. Louisville and Lexington, I need you to hear me right now. Stop whatever you're doing tonight and stock up, because if the power goes out in single-digit temperatures, that becomes a real emergency real fast. For Richmond, Virginia, the models are showing snow first, then a transition to freezing rain as temperatures sit right at that knife's edge 32-degree mark, and that transition window is when things get dangerous. Roanoke and Southwest Virginia. Your higher elevation actually works in your favor here. You stay cold enough for snow rather than ice. But keep a sharp eye on the latest updates because that can change. Charlotte, North Carolina. I want you to pay really close attention here because the ice threat for the metro area is very real, and Charlotte roads are simply not built to handle even a thin coat of black ice. And look, I'm not trying to scare anybody. Charlotte folks are tough and they know how to handle rough weather, but this is the kind of event where even a half inch of freezing rain shuts the city down. Raleigh, Durham. Same story. The Research Triangle has had one heck of a rough winter already, and this setup has the potential to pile more misery on top of what's already been a brutal season. Greensboro and Winston-Salem. You are sitting right in the heart of the ice threat corridor. If you do not absolutely have to drive Monday morning, please just don't, because it is not worth the risk. Now here's the part of this forecast that blew my mind when I first saw it this morning, and I'll be honest, I had to look at the data twice to make sure I was reading it right. While Charlotte is bracing for ice and Minneapolis is buried in dangerous cold at exactly the same time, Dallas is sitting at 55 degrees and folks in Houston are wearing light jackets. We've got a 60-plus degree temperature difference happening simultaneously across this country right now, 60 degrees, and that kind of contrast is not normal, even for winter. That spread, that massive temperature gap between north and south, is the exact fuel that keeps the jet stream fired up and keeps storm systems churning across the Midwest week after week. And here's the thing that most people down south don't realize if you're in Dallas or Houston thinking this storm is somebody else's problem. You're actually part of the atmospheric story driving all of this. That warm air sitting over Texas is feeding moisture northward into the storm system, so in a very real way. The warmth in the south is making the ice in the Carolinas worse. That's the kind of thing that makes weather genuinely fascinating and genuinely humbling, because the atmosphere doesn't care about state lines or what our weather apps are telling us. Now let's swing back north and dig into the specifics by city, because I know a lot of you have been waiting for your area, and these details are genuinely worth the wait. Pittsburgh and Cleveland. You're catching the leading edge of the system. Expect 2 to 4 inches of snow with strong winds that make it feel much worse than those numbers sound on paper. Philadelphia. You're in a tricky spot with this one. The heaviest snow axis looks to stay just north and west of the city, but enough falls to make the Monday morning commute genuinely slippery and slow. Washington, D.C., and Baltimore. Pay close attention. Even an inch or two of snow in this region creates absolute gridlock, and with the ice threat just to the south, the transition zone runs right through your backyard. For New York City, and listen, New Yorkers, I know y'all just got hammered by Winter Storm Hernando, but this clipper is bringing a few more inches of fresh snow on top of what you're still cleaning up from. The mayor already put it plainly. This is shaping up to be the coldest sustained stretch the city has seen in 8 years, and that cold is going to linger long after the snow stops falling. Boston and southern New England. You're catching the tail end of this system, another 2 to 4 inches on top of the snowpack Hernando already left behind. And then the deep freeze digs in through midweek. Now let me shift over to some cities in the Ohio Valley and the Mid-South that I haven't covered yet, because these areas are sitting in a really complicated part of the forecast. Indianapolis. You're getting hit Sunday evening, 2 to 4 inches of snow, and then temperatures nosedive into the single digits by Monday morning. So whatever falls overnight is going to be frozen solid by dawn. Columbus. Ohio, you're in a similar boat. On the edge of the main snow band with 2 to 5 inches possible and that brutal cold snap right behind it, making Tuesday morning commutes particularly rough. Cincinnati is one of the trickier forecasts in this whole system. You're in the zone where snow can flip to freezing drizzle without much warning. And that transition creates that sneaky black ice on bridges that nobody sees coming. St. Louis. You're far enough south to potentially dodge the main snow band, but Arctic air is absolutely going to reach you, and Monday morning is going to feel downright miserable even without the snow. Nashville. You dodged the worst of this one, and I know you're relieved after the season you've had, but cold temperatures are going to push through Tuesday morning, so don't put the winter gear away just yet. Atlanta. You're on the very southern edge of the cold air intrusion. Temperatures drop, but should mostly stay just above freezing. So your main concern is cold rain and gusty winds rather than ice or snow. Now, let me walk through the snow accumulation totals by state, because I know that's what a lot of folks are really after, and the numbers are worth going through carefully. Iowa is the bullseye for this event. Models are showing solid agreement on 6 to 8 inches in many spots, with wind making it blow and drift in ways that can make roads impassable even with lower actual totals. Wisconsin is looking at 3 to 6 inches across most of the state, with the heavier totals focused on the northern portions where the cold air is deepest and the snow is driest. Michigan gets a significant hit too. Western Lower Peninsula is in for 4 to 6 inches, and lake effect enhancement on the backside of the system could push some totals even higher than that. Ohio has a wide range. Northern Ohio could see 4 to 6 inches, while southern Ohio might see just 1 to 3, and that gradient comes down to exactly where the main snow band sets up. Pennsylvania splits pretty cleanly. Western Pennsylvania is in for 2 to 4 inches, while eastern Pennsylvania near I-95 stays lighter with potential mixing that limits the snowfall there. West Virginia is a story unto itself. The mountains could see 8 to 12 inches of snow in the higher elevations, and the models have been pretty consistent on that number across multiple runs. New York State gets 3 to 5 inches across the southern tier, with New York City picking up a couple of inches, enough to make Monday morning miserable, but not a record-breaking event for the city. Boston and New England get the tail end 2 to 4 inches, and with what Hernando already dumped up there. The snowpack across the region right now is absolutely massive. Now, here's something I want to flag that a lot of weather coverage is glossing over the model. Disagreement on this system is larger than usual, and that matters for how you prepare. The European model and the American GFS are showing the storm center tracking about 50 to 100 miles apart, and I know that sounds like splitting hairs. But in a fast-moving system, that's the difference between 2 inches and 8 inches. My advice, and this is what I tell my own family every time we're in a situation like this, always prepare for the higher end of the range, because it costs you very little and protects you from a lot. Which brings me back to that ice threat in the mid-Atlantic and Carolinas, because I want to make sure I've been crystal clear about just how dangerous freezing rain can be compared to snow. People underestimate ice every single time, and I understand why, because an inch of snow looks way more dramatic than a thin glaze of ice. But that glaze is 10 times more dangerous. Think about the 2021 Texas ice storm roads that looked perfectly fine were sending cars into guardrails because there was literally nothing a driver could do once the tires lost contact with the surface. This week's setup is not that extreme, I want to be straight with you on that, but it has the same basic ingredients in a more localized package, and the affected areas are not equipped to deal with it. Southern road crews just don't have the salt and sand stockpiles that northern states do, because ice events this significant are rare enough down there that the infrastructure investment never made sense. That means the roads in Charlotte, Raleigh, Richmond, and Lexington are essentially going to be on their own, and that's when you get the real chaos that this kind of storm creates. Now, before we get to the prep checklist, and I do have one for you, and I want you to actually use it, let me answer a question I know a lot of you are thinking about: the airports. Chicago O'Hare and Midway are going to see delays and cancellations Sunday evening through Monday morning if you've got a connection through Chicago. Have a backup plan ready before you go to bed tonight. Detroit Metro is in the same situation. Monday morning departures are going to be hit hard. So check your flight status tonight, and then again first thing Monday before you even start getting dressed. Charlotte Douglas is the airport I'm most concerned about. Ice on a runway in a city that doesn't commonly deal with winter weather is a recipe for massive disruptions that cascade for days. If you're connecting through Charlotte Monday morning, reach out to your airline tonight before the storm hits, and everyone else has the same idea, because rebooking options close fast once the ice arrives. JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark are looking at snow delays that will slow everything down even if the totals aren't huge. Desing operations and ground conditions cause ripple effects for hours. Now let's get to the good stuff, the prep checklist, and I need you to treat this like a real to-do list, not just something to scroll past, because this is the part that actually keeps you safe. Number 1, and do this right now before you forget, charge your phone, your laptop, your portable battery pack, and anything else in your house that runs on a rechargeable battery. If you're in the ice threat zone from Kentucky through the Carolinas, power outages are on the table for Tuesday morning. And a dead phone when you've got no power and no heat is a very bad situation. Number 2, make a grocery run tonight, specifically for non-perishables, bottled water, and anything you'd need to get through 48 to 72 hours without being able to leave the house safely. I know it sounds like overkill, and I hope it is, but here's the thing. If you never need it, you've just got extra food in the pantry, and that's not exactly a crisis. Number 3, if you've got any outdoor pipes on an exterior wall, wrap them tonight with pipe insulation or even old towels and tape, because a hard freeze on top of a wet storm is exactly what bursts pipes. And a burst pipe at 3 in the morning when it's 15 degrees outside is one of those things that goes from inconvenient to catastrophic in about 20 minutes. So just take the 5 minutes tonight to wrap them. Number 4, and this one is really for those of you who've got older neighbors or family members nearby. Check on them tonight and make sure they've got what they need before this thing rolls in. Older adults are disproportionately affected by power outages and extreme cold. And the dangerous window isn't just during the storm, it's the 24 to 48 hours after, when black ice is everywhere and the cold is deepest. Number 5, if you absolutely have to drive Monday morning, slow down at least 30% below the posted speed limit on surface streets, and stay off the highway if you can at all avoid it. And here's the thing, I cannot stress enough, all-wheel drive helps you get going on snow. But it does absolutely nothing to help you stop on ice, so don't let it give you a false sense of security. Now let me shift gears and talk about something that doesn't get enough attention in a storm like this. What comes after the cold breaks, and why that transition actually matters. By Wednesday and Thursday, a significant warm-up starts to build across the southern plains and eventually spreads northward, and that temperature swing is going to be dramatic. By the end of the week, New York City's 14-day forecast is showing temperatures climbing well above normal. Spring is arriving fast once this cold snap breaks, and the contrast with Monday is going to be striking. But here's what meteorologists are already watching, because when warm air comes roaring back in behind a deep cold pattern like this one, the setup for severe weather in the south gets interesting. That mid to late March window is when tornado season starts heating up across the southern plains. And with the kind of atmospheric energy we've seen loaded up this winter, the atmosphere has a lot to unload. Now, I'm not saying anything is imminent on that front, that's a whole other video, and I'll have that forecast for you later this week, but it's worth having on your radar as we move through March. What I will say is this: the pattern we've been in all winter, with the polar vortex wobbling and cold air spilling south, has not fully reset itself, and the atmosphere is still carrying a lot of energy. Think of it like a pot of water on the stove. Once you get that kind of heat and motion going in the atmosphere, it doesn't just switch off, it keeps churning and looking for ways to release that energy. That's why meteorologists are already eyeing another potential storm system in the 10 to 14 day range. Too early for specifics, but the large-scale pattern absolutely supports continued active weather through mid-March, which is a long way of saying don't put the emergency kit away after Monday. Keep a few extra days of supplies on hand, and stay tuned because winter is not quite done with us yet. Now let me give a quick shout out to folks in the Pacific Northwest and the Rockies, because while the East is dealing with this clipper, you've got your own weather story playing out right now. A separate Pacific system is pushing onshore into the Pacific Northwest, bringing lower elevation rain and meaningful mountain snow to the Cascades. Good news for the snowpack heading into spring water season. Seattle and Portland, you're in for a wet stretch through early next week, nothing that'll knock you flat. But classic Pacific Northwest gray and drizzly that'll make you earn your weekend. Salt Lake City and Denver. The Rockies are picking up solid snowfall, not the kind of event that shuts things down, but good mountain snowpack accumulation that skiers and water managers are both cheering for. Boise and the Snake River Plain. Watch for a wintry mix as the system pushes through enough to slow down the Monday commute, but not the kind of event that warrants major concern for most folks. All right, let's come back to the Mid-Atlantic one more time, because there's one piece of the forecast I haven't fully explained yet, and it's actually the key to understanding why the ice threat is so significant there. Meteorologists call it cold air damming, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Cold air gets trapped against the eastern side of the Appalachian Mountains and just sits there like it's got nowhere to go. When warm, moist air tries to flow in over the top of that cold wedge. Instead of snow, you get freezing rain, and the Appalachians are shaped almost perfectly to create this exact setup. This is the same mechanism that's produced some of the most damaging ice storms the Carolinas have ever seen. And while this week's event is not at that historic scale, the ingredients are recognizable. Asheville, up in the mountains. You actually come out better here. Your elevation keeps you cold enough for snow rather than ice, which sounds counterintuitive, but that's how cold air damming works. But the Piedmont region, Greensboro, Burlington, Winston-Salem, you are sitting right in the cold air damming bullseye, and the ice threat there is real enough that it needs to be taken seriously tonight. Columbia, South Carolina. You're in an interesting spot. Temperatures might hover right at 32 degrees, which is ironically the worst place to be because that's where ice accumulates fastest. Now let's wrap this up with the bottom line summary, because I know some of you have been patient and you want the straight talk, so here it is. No hedging, no softening. A fast-moving Alberta clipper is bringing 4 to 8 inches of snow to Iowa and the Midwest right now, tracking east through the Great Lakes and into the Mid-Atlantic through Monday morning. Behind it, Arctic air is driving temperatures to dangerous levels, wind chills of 30 to 40 below zero near Minneapolis, teens and 20s across the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley through Tuesday. The most serious threat in this whole system is the ice corridor stretching from Lexington, Kentucky through Richmond, Virginia, and into the Carolinas. Up to half an inch of freezing rain is on the table. Travel is going to be extremely hazardous Monday morning across the Midwest, impaired through the Ohio Valley, and outright dangerous in the ice threat zone, even where the roads look completely normal. Power outages are a real possibility in the ice corridor. Have your flashlights, backup heat sources, and at least 72 hours of food and water ready before you go to bed tonight. I want to say one more time, the window to prepare is right now, tonight. Sunday evening, not Monday morning when you're standing outside looking at a sheet of ice on your driveway. Here's what I want you to do right now. Drop your city in the comments and tell me which part of this forecast you're most concerned about: the snow, the ice, the cold, or the wind. Tonight I'm going through every single comment and picking cities for a detailed breakdown, so if you want your area covered specifically, this is exactly how you get on my radar. The most commented city tonight gets its own 5-minute dedicated forecast segment in tomorrow's update, so don't just comment once. Ask your neighbors and family to drop their cities in there too. If this breakdown helped you understand what's headed your way and what to do about it, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps this information reach more folks who genuinely need it before Monday hits. Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you get the update tonight when new model data comes in, because with a system moving this fast, things can shift in just a few hours. The bottom line on this one is simple. Don't let the speed of this clipper fool you into thinking you've got time to spare, because fast moving means the window to get ready is shorter, not longer. Get your supplies tonight, charge your devices, check on your neighbors, and keep this channel on your radar, because we are not taking our eyes off this system until it's completely out of the region. Stay warm, stay safe. And I will have the latest model update for you tonight, because this is exactly the kind of week where checking the forecast isn't just a habit, it's genuinely important. We'll see you in the next one with everything you need to know about what comes after this system, and trust me, the second half of the week has a story of its own that's absolutely worth telling.